If the schooner has a rear-view mirror, it's time for Sooner Nation to put non-conference play there. No time to think about caging the Cougars or riding the green wave right back to the Big Easy. It's time to put the Ponies and the Palace on the Prairie and a proud program on display under the scorching SEC lights of prime time for the first time. The magic moment, years in the making, has arrived. From inside Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, this is Sooner Game Day presented by Taco Mayo. 2000 national championship winning Sooner quarterback Josh Heupel brings his Tennessee Volunteers to Norman with the nation's highest scoring offense in the first SEC conference game for the Oklahoma Sooners. Kickoff 6:30, nationally televised. Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit, and Holly Rowe on the call on ABC TV. And right away, we learn this is why you play games in the SEC, as the last time a top 10 foe came to Norman was 2017. First time out of the gate in the SEC, and you got one coming to town. Won't be the last time this season a top 10 foe visits the Palace on the Prairie. I'm your host, Chad McKee. Welcome into Sooner Game Day. You know my partners here, the Butkus Bednarik Award-winning linebacker, national champion, Josh Heupel's teammate in 2000, Teddy Lehman, and sandwiched in between us is the Werfel Trophy winner, academic All-American of the Year and All-American center, Gabe Eichert. We are ready to go. We've been waiting to go, quite honestly, for quite some time. You think about environments, what will it be like? Teddy and I were at the game in Knoxville, 2015. That's the loudest stadium I've ever been in. Wow. Ted, I don't know about you.
Yeah, it was loud, but I mean, it was fun. It was just, it had that huge game feel to it.
Gabe was somewhere getting ready to play an NFL game the next day, so he could not be there. But
I was getting ready to watch.
Getting ready to watch the game. Yeah, getting ready to watch an NFL game and this game, as a matter of fact, between the Sooners and Vols. But you know what? What do you think the environment is going to be like? SEC for the first time. What does it need to be like, Ted?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about, the crowd's got to show. I'm not worried about it. Whenever we've had environments like this, it's been awesome. You just go back and you can clip through the big time games that we've had. And now it's been a while, right? And it's awesome to have a conference game of this magnitude. But man, I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to be underneath the lights. The crowd, the team, everyone's going to be amped up. This is like a can't miss for the crowd. I think it's going to be
When's
great.
the last time a game felt like this to you, Gabe?
I wasn't at the Ohio State game in 16, but I was at the 2012 game with Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And for me personally, that was by far the most energy I ever felt for a home game as a player. And it was a very similar set of circumstances. Primetime kickoff, night game, game day was there. I mean, Tom Rinaldi interviewed me during the week. There was a lot going on in two really, really good football teams. So I feel like that's the last time it's felt like this. And then you add on the fact that it's our first SEC game and you throw the Josh Heupel wrinkle into all of it. We haven't had a game like this and maybe ever.
Yeah, really, I mean, quite like this with these types of storylines, with these type of ranked teams in this situation. You may be right. I mean, we're not big rankings guys here on this show, but it sure feels special. And these two programs have a history. They didn't play for like 75 years. Then they had two great games, one here, one out in Knoxville. We're going to show highlights of those in just a moment, but Oklahoma leads the series 3-1 all time. Now for this year's edition of the Sooners, offense clicked better, Gabe, early against Tulane, got out to that 21-0 lead. What felt more confident or better in that game Saturday?
Well, I'll start with the run game. I thought the run game had more variety. Thought they got to more of the gap scheme runs, which looked really good. But the difference was Jackson Arnold. He played well. Played on time in the passing game, took what Tulane's defense gave him, was accurate with the football, and then was an absolute weapon with his legs, whether that was called QB run game, him reading things out in run game, or just scrambling and making something happen from the pocket. That was the difference. Jackson Arnold was really, really good. I know he had the pick six, but that involved a just massive breakdown in pass protection, which can happen. But other than that, I thought Jackson Arnold by far played his best game as a Sooner.
Important to get him some confidence as well. Teddy, defensively, solid in the first half, and then kind of took over in the second half. They end up with 7 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and a pick in the second half. What stood out to you?
Yeah, they continue to be really, really sharp against the run. They're controlling the line of scrimmage. You know, we haven't been able to separate from teams by scoring a bunch of points, so everyone's been able to keep a pretty conservative game plan, short passes, get the ball out of the quarterback's hands, but we've done a really good job battling. And then late, whenever they had to finally start throwing the ball, we got after the quarterback. Our Mason Thomas had a huge fourth quarter. That was big time. To me, that's what really stood out, is being able to just, you know, coverage on the back end and let those guys rush up front and have some success.
We get the scoop on the Vols. It is presented by Brahms Ice Cream and Dairy Stores, farm fresh for over 50 years. This is just a single dip. We're going to get the full triple dip a little bit later on.
Single dip?
See, I know you're not a single dip,
No one
Gabe.
does a single
Just a
dip.
taster, just a sample, though. This is an offense that's leading the country, 64 points per game and 640 yards of. They could have scored 100 points last week, honestly. It would have been no problem for them. How are they putting up these eye-popping numbers?
Well, 2 main reasons. Number one, very talented football team. Nico Iamaleava looks great at the quarterback position. The offensive line is very solid, and then they got playmakers at the skilled positions, and the run game is really humming with Sampson. The second reason, they played some really bad defenses.
Yes, they have.
They've played some very, very bad defenses, and they put 51 up on NC State. And as I went through that tape, I was very confused as to what NC State was trying to accomplish defensively. I did not like their plan, but you really can't take anything away from Tennessee. They have annihilated everything that's been in their path. Run game's been good. Passing game's been explosive. They've got all the RPO game. They play at hyper tempo. They've just been really, really good in these first 3 games. It's a massive challenge for OU's defense.
Maybe the unit that people haven't talked about enough coming into this game is the Tennessee defense. We hear a lot about the Sooners defense in both offenses, but Teddy, they haven't given up a touchdown in 16 quarters. Going back to last season, they did play North Carolina State. That's a top 25 team. How legit is this defense?
Well, the front 7 is excellent, led by the defensive line. They've got a first-round edge guy in Pierce that everyone knows about. And they're deep on the defensive line, and they've been able to absolutely dominate the line of scrimmage in their first 3 non-conference games. And, you know, a lot of that is expected, but kind of like offensively, they've done what really good teams do to inferior teams, and it just sticks out. You see these guys just flying to the football. Every single snap, line of scrimmage is just going backwards into the quarterback's lap. But, you know, I think that you could say that they're not tested. You know, I think the back end, their secondary, there may be some holes there. There may be some opportunity for us, and I know we'll get into that later. But, you know, I kind of like the fact that they've had 3 super easy games coming in, because this is going to look totally different.
The Vols are one of 5 SEC teams ranked in the top 7 of the AP poll who are on the Sooners' schedule the rest of the way. That is life in the SEC. But the Sooners gained some confidence last week. In particular, the offense. Jackson Arnold got his footing underneath him. How can they maybe get a little bit healthier going into the game? The quest for consistency continues. How might they find it against the Vols? The fellas weigh in next on Sooner Game Day, presented by Taco Mayo. Oklahoma, Tennessee, a good 2-game series, 2014 and 2015. That is Julian Wilson with a 100-yard pick 6 that was the icing on the cake in a 34-10 Sooner win. Trevor Knight and Sterling Shepard were good, and Baker Mayfield's second start as Sooner quarterback. Oh, quiet in the crowd at Neyland Stadium. This game goes to overtime. Sterling Shepard's magic act with Teddy Lehman in the background.
I thought he was going to pitch it to me. I was going to go finish the job.
I think you could have with all that energy. And then sealed by Zach Sanchez. Largest comeback by an opponent against Tennessee in a regular season game. The Sooners were down 17-3 with less than 9 minutes left. What a great 2-game series it was. That crowd was electric. We expect the same here in Norman coming up on Saturday night in what will be the biggest game. And I know it's early in his career, but you think back and Baker Mayfield thrust into that environment. It's going to be similar to that, but at home for Jackson Arnold. What is important for Jackson Arnold in this game on Saturday?
Well, the proper thing for me to say would be he just needs to do his 111th. Right? That's what I should say, but I really don't believe that. I think he needs to be special on Saturday night. And we've seen some glimpses of it. I like a lot of the things I saw in the Tulane game, but he needs to be accurate. He needs to be on time in the passing game. He needs to be a weapon with his legs, whether it's called QB run or he's just scrambling. And then got to let it rip down the field. Tennessee they are going to produce explosive plays, and Oklahoma has to have some of them. You have to get some things that are easy. It's going to be really, really difficult to put together 10, 12, 14 play drives against a defense as good as Tennessee. You have to have some huge 30, 40, 50-yard chunk plays. So a ton of pressure on Jackson Arnold. But that just comes with being the quarterback at Oklahoma. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'll add this in there. It all depends on how the game unfolds, but he's going to have to play really smart. There's going to be times whenever you need to take a risk, you need to make something happen, you need to push it down the field. But if your defense is keeping you in a really tight football game, we got a low-scoring game going on, field position, all of that stuff matters. You got to be a little bit more conservative with the ball. But, I think he's going to have to be big in the run game. They're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage to some degree. I mean, that you have to give them the edge in that matchup right now. So in order to flip the numbers in our favor, you're going to have to dial up Jackson Arnold's number quite a bit in the run game.
Had nearly 100 yards rushing in the game against Tulane this past week. And speaking of the run game, we saw Taylor Tatum provide a little shot in the arm. He caught a touchdown pass, ran for a touchdown. Super talented, #1 running back in the country coming to Norman, Teddy. Will we see an increase in his workload, or is that possible given the way they kind of divvy things out?
Yeah, there's no doubt that he's special when he has the ball in his hands. He can do some really nice things. He sees it well. He makes some really good athletic cuts. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. And, frankly, that's where I'd like to see it expand for him a little bit, is getting him out of the backfield in the passing game. We may have to screen these guys. We may have to throw some swing routes and get the ball out of Jackson Arnold's hands quickly. It's going to be hard to just drop back pass. They're going to dial up pressures. We've had some trouble with the running backs in the blitz pickup game. So when they see a young freshman in there, they're going to dial it up. So we've got to have some counters to that.
Offensive line health, that's front and center. Center, in fact, Branson Hickman hasn't played since the opener. Jake Taylor's missed the last couple of games. Gabe, what are the possibilities? And I know you're not a doctor, but you're going to have to play one for just a moment. Possibilities of either or both of those guys seeing some action on Saturday?
Yeah, I think that, just kind of putting myself in those guys' shoes, they're going to try to play.
Yeah.
It just comes down to how long can they last with their individual injuries. Hickman's been practicing, and frankly, he's looked better than I thought he would look with the high ankle sprain. So I expect him to give it a go, and he's a veteran guy. He's a strong player. They need him out there for as many snaps as he can give them against this Tennessee defensive line. I think Jake Taylor is more of a break glass in case of emergency situation. I think they feel pretty good about Sexton and Tarquin at the tackle positions, but if one of those guys goes down, Jake Taylor, he already proved a couple games ago how tough he is going and playing out there with multiple injuries. So we'll see how it goes, but this is the type of game, if you can play, even if it's only a quarter, you get yourself on the field.
Wide receivers been a beat-up group, as beat up as the offensive line has been, starting in the preseason with Jaden Gibson. Andrell Anthony still working his way back, and no Nick Anderson yet. Teddy, how about the possibility at that position of seeing a returnee, maybe two?
If not
can
now, I don't know when.
Yeah.
I mean, Nick, if you can go, you can give it a try. Sometimes on some of those soft tissue things, you can try all you want. If it's not there, it's not ready. But, I would expect that he's at least going to give it a go, just like, some of these other guys. Well, there's no doubt that we've been banged up. I mean, that's the understatement at wide receiver. But I've kind of been surprised that we haven't seen more guys step up and make plays in those roles whenever they've had their opportunities. I mean, there's been plenty of time now for someone to come in and prove that they can be dependable, and it just continues to be a revolving door there. So we need Nick Anderson back in a big way. And if you look back to the bowl game, the little combo of him and Jackson Arnold was awesome. Just working the sideline. They have a really good chemistry between the two. And to have another, consistent outlet for Jackson Arnold would be big time.
Coming back to you first, Ted, boil it down for us. How does Oklahoma find consistent offensive success potentially against Tennessee?
Well, they got to move the ball, and Gabe hit the chunk plays earlier. You got to hit on some big chunk plays, but the biggest thing to me is we have to stay out of 3rd and 8 to 12, and we've been there pretty much all season so far. We got to run the ball on 1st and 2nd down. We've got to hit some of the shorter passes. You saw some of those to Burks and to DeBauer Sharp over the middle of the field. We got to build on that. We can't have the negative plays. We can't penalize ourselves. We can't have illegal formations and false starts. We have to stay on schedule.
I think early you need to figure out ways to slow down Tennessee's defensive front. These guys come roaring off the rock. So some screens, some cut protection, maybe just some quick things to the outside, get them running sideline to sideline. You have to find ways to slow that defensive line group down. Like James Pierce, you got to chip him early. You got to get him thinking, hey, where's the chip coming from? That thought needs to be in his head early in the football game. As far as the running game, I think you're going to find the most success at the edges of the defense. Outside zone, and we saw him run some stretch last week against Tulane, and it looked pretty good. They had a handful of snaps of that. I think you could go to that, and then you can hit them with your counter concepts, kind of split the defense there in the middle. But I think they have to attack the secondary. I really think this game is going to come down to whether or not Deion Burks, Bauer Sharp, those guys can go win against this secondary. Because I think when you look at their defense, that's the weakest part of their defense.
Feels like the first quarter is important. Tennessee has outscored opponents 68-0 so far in the first quarter this year. Get off to a good start. You'll always take a good start. Sooner defense has been as advertised so far, but Tennessee is a test like going from 8th grade biology to quantum physics, I think. And we know Gabe likes physics. In fact, he's the only one of us qualified to talk about physics on the program. Our Mason Thomas had his best game as a Sooner. Can this be a launching pad to stardom for him? Fellas weigh in next on Sooner Game Day.
Mintza's got it. Sooners bring 4. Mintza under pressure. Hit as he throws. R. Mason knocked the ball loose. He picked it up. R. Mason Thomas. He's unstoppable in the 4th quarter. He forced the fumble, picked it up. He's a one-man wrecking crew, and you can unhitch the wagon. On the field is a fumble.
That's right. Put him in the barn. R. Mason Thomas, he is a guy that you have talked about, Teddy, for a couple of years. As long as he can stay healthy, he's a difference maker. Why did he break out against Tulane Saturday?
Well, we finally put him in a position where we knew what was coming. We could sit back in coverage and let those guys go to work up front. And, he was winning all day. But, whenever the game is close and, they're still trying to run the football, they're within reach, they're going to be super conservative, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of it from Tennessee as well. Max protect, 6, 7, 8-man protections even, chipping with a running back over there, lining up a tight end over the top of him. You don't get a whole bunch of just straight drop back pass, and whenever he's had that, he's won. And the get off is excellent. He's flying around, the ability to bend. He just hasn't been healthy for this first couple of years here at Oklahoma. Right now, he's stayed really healthy, knock on wood, and you can tell, look at that get off right there. He's just flying off the football. He's in a good spot right now.
It's an experienced Tennessee offensive line, Gabe. 4 of the 5 starters are either seniors or even 5th-year players. They were semifinalists for the Joe Moore Award for Offensive Line of the Year. How do you see this matchup? Oklahoma's D-line, Tennessee's offensive line.
I like the group for Tennessee. Very physical. I really like the center, Cooper Mays. I'm assuming their left tackle, Lance Hurd, is going to be good to go for this football game. He didn't play a week ago, but I think that was just, they kept him out as a precaution. They want to maul you at the point of attack. They run counter over and over and over again, a variety of ways, but that's their bread and butter play. And they want to double team you off the football. And this is going to be football in its purest form. These guys are going to try to move you. There's no secrets. They're not going to try to trick you. It's, can you win your one-on-one matchups? Or can you hold up against the double team? And if OU's defensive line wins that battle more often than they lose it, then they're going to play some good defense in this game.
Oklahoma's run defense has been good. They give up about 77 yards a game. Tennessee averages 335 on the ground. Dylan Sampson has been excellent. He's run for 9 touchdowns. Yeah, we're going to talk a little more specifically about Dylan Sampson. But, Teddy, how would you slow this run game of Tennessee's down?
Well, as Gabe said, the defensive line is going to have to anchor. They're going to have to perform really well across the front. And what we are good at and what Venables has been good at his entire career, I think over, I don't know how far you go back, but tackles for loss, his defenses have produced more than anyone else. Does a really good job, obviously, teaching everything up front whenever you're in just base defense, but blitzing, changing the front, moving the front at the right time, showing a different presentation, and then stemming last second right before the snap. Bringing pressure off the edge from your cheetah or your nickel guys or your corners whenever the ball's into the boundary. Super creative stuff, and we haven't seen a whole lot of it this year. We've been able to just line up and keep people in check, but I guarantee you Venables is going to empty out the cupboard this weekend, and you're going to see all kinds of stuff thrown at him.
That's going to happen. Mm-hmm. They're going to be very multiple with their fronts, with their movement, the things they do right before the snap, shifting. The crowd can play a huge role in that.
Absolutely.
I cannot explain to you how difficult it is as an offensive lineman to where they're doing all kinds of different stuff on defense. It's super loud. I'm trying to tell my guys what we're doing because the rules change for an offensive line, whether it's run or pass. The rules change when the front changes. And you have to communicate all of that. And you got to communicate it to your back. And your quarterback's got to communicate it.
We heard that.
If you are really, really loud and they're doing all kinds of different things on defense, it becomes very difficult to relay everything as an offensive line.
You can do your part, right?
And I'm dead serious. The crowd can impact their operation. If the defense is doing all kinds of different things, you have to communicate all that, and it's really, really difficult to communicate it if it's loud as hell.
Especially when you got a true freshman quarterback.
Great point.
And,
his first road start.
Yeah, and they have not been good on the road. Now, they faced some really difficult teams on the road, but fact remains they have not performed well on the road. They're a tempo team. They like to go super fast, and on the road, all of that stuff is more difficult.
Oklahoma forcing turnovers again. They have 10 takeaways this season, lead the country. You know what they did last year, led the country in interceptions. That's not going to deter the Vols from taking their shots, Gabe. Are Billy Bowman, Robert Spears-Jennings, rest of those guys back there, how prepared are they for this?
They're prepared, and they need to play extremely well because, especially at the safety spot with Billy and RSJ, they're going to be pivotal in some of these run fits. They're going to have to make some plays one-on-one against Sampson, and that guy is elusive, and he is powerful. So that's going to be a big challenge. And then they have to play with extremely disciplined eyes. You've got all the RPO stuff. You just have to trust your keys. And the second you get peeking into the backfield and looking at the wrong thing is when they want to throw it over your head. So it's an extremely challenging offense for Billy Bowman and RSJ, but those guys have to play at an extremely high level. They've looked really good so far this season, and they're going to need to be at their best on Saturday night.
Well, it all comes back to stopping the run again. If they are running the football consistently, they're throwing the smoke stuff to the outside and beating our defensive backs on the one-on-one tackles, and they're chewing up yardage, and they're constantly in, 2nd and 2 and 3, 3rd and 1 and 2. It is going to be a very difficult day on the back end. But you stop the run, you force them into 3rd and long, I think those guys will do excellent, and I think he'll throw us the football a couple times.
Some guys nursing injuries defensively. Kendall Dolby not playing. Haven't seen Desan McCullough on that side. Gentry Williams. So see if anybody gets healthy potentially on the defensive side, Gabe.
Got to have Dolby.
Yep.
He is,
This is why you have him at that spot, games like this.
Yeah, this is a perfect game for him, especially if they go to any of their 3 safety stuff. It makes him even more pivotal at that cheetah spot, and I expect him to play.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked. Just knowing the way that guy's wired, I'd be shocked if he didn't.
Yeah,
outside of having all your chess pieces, boil it down. Both of you guys, Ted, take a shot at it. What's the key to slowing down this offense that's averaging 640 yards a game?
Stop the run, get them off schedule, make the young quarterback have to beat you from the pocket on 3rd and long. And, you know, it's going to be a team effort. Field position's going to matter. Coming out is way different for a young quarterback when you bury him in those end zones and it's super loud and they have to be a little more conservative with the play calling. But, you know, we're going to have to get turnovers. We're going to have to force turnovers. Guys are going to have to make big plays. We're going to have to create negative yardage plays up front with the defensive line. I honestly think it's a pretty good matchup for us. I mean, recognizing as good as they are, I think they're clearly going to make plays. They're probably going to put some points up, but you know, for us to win the game, we need this to be a lower scoring football game, and I feel like our guys will be up to the task.
You got to change the front, change the coverage. You got a young quarterback. You do have a veteran offensive line, though, but constantly changing the picture. And then it just comes down to what all football games come down to. When everything's set, and that ball snap, you got to whoop the guy across from you. I think that is the key to the game for Oklahoma's defense is the guys, the 6 guys that are in the core, the 4 defensive linemen, and then whether it's Stutzman and Kobe McKenzie or Stutzman and Kip Lewis, those guys have to be more violent than the guys from Tennessee.
And as Gabe said, crowd can be loud. That can impact things. Speaking of that,
huge.
How's Josh Heupel feeling about coming back to Norman, where he was a star, one of the all-time greats? But he'll make this return to Norman with his Tennessee Volunteers. And this week, he talked a little bit about what he thinks that might be like. We'll hear from him next on Sooner Game Day, presented by Taco Mayo. Josh Heupel was special as Oklahoma quarterback coming in from Snow College. He, Bob Stoops, Brent Venables, of course, on that staff. They got things pointed back in the right direction. You can never underestimate his value. Heisman runner-up, there's the national championship. Rewrote all the Sooner passing records in 2 seasons. Then offensive coordinator for 4 seasons before being let go. How's he feeling about his return to Norman this weekend?
I wouldn't be here today at Tennessee if I didn't have all of those experiences. So tremendously grateful for all those people. And you know, Brent is somebody that, you know, I learned and grew from as a young coach so much, and a ton of respect for him. It'll be unique going back into that stadium. It's going to be a viewpoint. I'm not sure I've ever spent a day on the opposing sideline inside of that stadium, not even for a scrimmage. So should be a great crowd. It's a passionate fan base. I'm expecting them to be extremely quiet for us out of respect to me and our program too. So,
a joke, throwing a zinger at us there, Teddy. Yeah,
I know that was good.
Sly grin. He is not the only.
Not going to happen.
Why are they got to laugh for him? What are they doing?
It's the media.
That was a good joke.
It was solid.
They're sitting there looking down, jotting notes, worried about their next question.
Yeah, they're more worried about it. It's also
hype. I would have laughed. That was good, man.
You got Joey Halsley on staff, former Sooner quarterback. He was in the quarterback room with Sam Bradford here in Norman, on staff under Bob Stoops. So they're not the only Sooners there. You talk about the 2 quarterbacks in this game. They're going to be front and center. The coaches can do all they want. You got 2 of the best coming out of high school in 2023. Nico Iamaleava, he was the top regular quarterback by On3. And then Jackson Arnold, #1 dual threat quarterback by ESPN. Both got a start in their team's bowl game last year after having to sit behind talented quarterbacks. But Nico can sling it. Now, this is his first start on the road. First SEC starts, the same for Jackson Arnold, but he has the benefit of playing at home. He's only played 8 quarters this year because they've blown everybody out. What is so scary, though, about this player and his skill set?
He's got it all. You know, he's big, he's athletic, he can run. I was just kind of laughing at that he was not listed as a dual threat quarterback. I would consider him a dual threat guy, but, you know, he pushes it down the field really well. You know, they run a lot of the in-breaking routes, some deeper in-breaking routes, as you see right there, and he does a really good job throwing those. Fast, they get him outside the pocket. You know, he's a threat to run the football. You know, I don't think he finishes runs all that great. It looks like he's a little indecisive on what he's going to do, but he can turn your lights out. Now, but like we've been pointing out, it's not going to look like this for him. He's not going to be protected all day like that. He's not going to have free runners all over the field. You know, they're not going to, at least I hope, not run for 350 yards like they have in their game so far. So he's made some mistakes. He's thrown the ball to the other team a couple of times. And, you know, I still think that he, even though he's put up big numbers, I still think that he'll act like a typical true freshman whenever you put him under duress.
You mentioned the run game, the spear of the arrow when it comes to that for the Volunteers is Dylan Sampson, 9 rushing touchdowns. Gabe, he's clipping off about 8 yards per carry.
Physical, fast, elusive, strong. He looks like one of the best backs in the country. Now, they have not played nearly as quality of a defense as they're going to see on Saturday night from the Sooners, but he's been really good, and his timing is good. And that's something that some running backs have and some don't. He has a good feel for how to set up his blocks and for when to step on the gas. Yeah, I've been really, really impressed with what I've seen from him so far this season.
Wide receivers, they've had 22 total plays of 20 yards or more. A dozen of them made by wide receivers. Teddy, who are the key targets that you have to watch out for?
All of them.
All of the above.
Yeah.
And they're all huge.
Yeah, that's the thing, is this is a really big group. And as you see these throws over the middle, you know, they're going to run some takeoff routes on you. They're big and they're fast, and they can go up and compete for those 50-50 balls. But it's those spear routes, those arrow routes over the middle of the field where it kind of ties up with what we haven't been the best at so far this year, is covering those underneath, middle of the field areas. We have to be really good. The backers, the safeties, when they're underneath, they have to play those good. And then obviously, you have to be good at corner. Your eyes have to be in the right place because they're going to pick you. They're going to run some rub routes to try and get you off, and then they're going to test it downfield.
Defensively, they have not allowed a touchdown on defense yet this season, and there are guys up and down the defensive front line. Gabe, as an offensive lineman watching the tape, who do you most worry about along the Tennessee defensive line?
The conversation starts with James Pierce, number 27 on the edge for them. A lot of people think he could end up being the #1 pick of the next NFL draft. He's got a tremendous get off. He's a great, just natural pass rusher, and he's a physical player. But as much as I like Pierce, I really like a couple of their interior defensive linemen.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, Bryson Easton, number 20, is a really good player. 55, Omar Norman-Lott may be my favorite player on their entire football team because he can just absolutely rush the passer from the interior. Number 42, Tyree West at the defensive end
Gabe,
position.
you've named half the defense now.
They're
deep.
They go about 10 deep on the defensive line, and I haven't watched a single one of those guys in that 10 deep where I go, he can't play.
Yeah.
Well, they've
It's
only
impressive.
had one guy that's played, 60 snaps the entire year?
They rotate a lot. They stay fresh, which is going to be interesting to see how Joe John Finley and Seth Luttrell manage the tempo in this game. Because you want to throw a lot at them. You want to be multiple in personnel groupings. You want to shift and trade and motion and make them talk. But you also don't want that defensive line to just continually get to roll in and stay fresh. So how much tempo do you use? That I'm sure it has been an interesting conversation in the building this week.
Not that you specifically target one position group or
Yes, you
think
do.
there's a weakness, but you probably should if you want to have success. Any place you see, Ted, on that Tennessee defense that could be vulnerable?
Secondary.
Okay.
But you have to be able to run the football. You have to be able to protect, to give yourself the right opportunities to take those chances down the field. But, I mean, they have not been tested very much this year. They've had some injury back there. They've got some new starters back there. If we can protect, I think there's going to be some opportunities. But, again, you have to be able to protect and you have to be able to run the football.
I also think you mentioned testing the secondary in the passing game. Make those guys tackle.
Yeah.
They've got a couple of what I would label as corner-type bodies playing their nickel position. You got to get those guys in the run fit. You got to make them tackle.
Each week, Chick-fil-A brings you My Pleasure. Download the Chick-fil-A app and order your favorites ahead of time. Teddy, to you first. What would give you the most pleasure on Saturday night?
If we have a 100-yard rusher.
Okay.
Haven't had one yet. Jackson Arnold was close and was probably over if you discount everything else. But we have to be able to run the football. We have to run it to keep the clock rolling, dictate time of possession, put Jackson Arnold in some better positions to convert third downs. We need someone to have a breakout game on the ground.
What would give you the most pleasure, Gabe?
Make Nico throw you 2.
Yeah.
His miss is high. When you watch him on tape, when he misses high. And I think that Zach Alley and Brent Venables are going to throw a lot at this young guy on Saturday night. Give him different looks, confuse him a little bit, and hopefully he throws you a couple.
Sooners and Vols Saturday night at the Palace on the Prairie. Welcome to the SEC Sooner Nation. Oklahoma fans expected to be loud, and we're taking a look at some of the other great matchups here at the Palace on the Prairie when we come back.
Sooner Game Day is brought to you by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. OU Health. Proud to be Oklahoma's flagship academic health system. The best place to gear up for game day is shop.soonersports.com. Log on to Soonersports.com/kids for information about joining the Sooner Junior Kids Club presented by OG&E and brought to you in part by Orthodontics exclusively, Mathis Home, and Devon Energy.
In honor of Tennessee coming into town as a top 10 team, we look back at some of the great games played on Owen Field. That's the game of the century, OU Nebraska in 71. Oh, tight end reverse. Maybe my favorite play all time in Oklahoma Sooner history.
See ya.
85, Keith Jackson. There's Jamel Holloway. A little slight high step at the end. And Teddy, 2000 game. There's Josh Heupel himself.
Huge game. That was so much fun.
I was so sad when we were down 14-0 as a small child in the crowd.
Yep.
But we turned it around, baby.
Andre Wolford, he was pretty good.
My grandma would not let me rush the field, and I was very angry at her.
Any others that we've, I mean, this is going back in the Wayback Machine. Recent vintage, Gabe?
No, I think these
2008
are
2008.
I was at that one as well as a recruit, and that was a lot of fun. I hope that's the type of fun we are having on Saturday night. Don't think this one's going to unfold quite like that one did, but all that matters is that you get the W.
That's right.
There's 85.
Gosh, we could use 85 right now.
85 was pretty good. Ryan Broyles left here as the all-time NCAA receptions and yardage leader. Here's our NCAA update. Things we saw this past week. It's presented by Taco Mile. Big appetite, bigger savings. Download and save today. Texas moves to #1. They've got the biggest win of the year going to Michigan, but they got an interesting quarterback situation with Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning.
He's hurt again, and let's just be real. Arch Manning looked really good. I know it was UTSA, but it still looked very impressive.
Not many gave Kentucky a chance. It was a field goal fest, but Georgia was able to survive. LSU, South Carolina.
That game was insane.
Wow.
Guess who did not pick South Carolina? Who did not pick LSU? That guy right there. We're going to show you that in a moment. What else stood out to you? Florida State 0-3 after going undefeated in the regular season last year, guys. What stood out last week?
About to be 0-4 too.
Looking that way.
Well, Texas, and I know we hit on that, but how do they handle that #1 spot? I mean, that's something they haven't been there in a long time, and heavy is the crown, right? Whenever everyone's going to be coming for them, obviously, but they've been super impressive, and I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how the quarterback situation does play out.
You know, Coach Saban got many times and told Sarkisian rat poison. Don't let it happen. And now it is Sarkisian's team that is up there. Pick 'em time, but first we review a perfect week last week for both Gabe and myself.
Unbelievable.
Shout out to the refs in LSU, South Carolina. Appreciate you, boys.
Real.
Shout out to me for riding Gabe's coattails. Notice I get to choose who picks first, and I just kind of piggyback.
Smacked
They
Arizona.
Yes, they did.
That was impressive.
No contest. Arizona was not quite ready for their Big 12 debut last week. Time to pick 'em, presented by Riverwind Casino. Good times, great rewards, and kind of got to get through these quickly. USC, Michigan. This is a Big Ten game. USC's first foray into the Big Ten. It feels like it should be played at the Rose Bowl, but it's going to be played at the Big House. Michigan's making a quarterback change already, Gabe. That's a big problem.
Yeah, I don't think Alex Orji solves their problems offensively. Lincoln Riley had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. Give me the Trojans.
I still am not sold on USC just yet. The LSU game, you know, I'm questioning that one right now after watching LSU a little bit more. Last chance, Michigan.
Oh,
last chance.
That's a Hail Mary from Ted. No, you got to take USC in this game. You got Utah, Oklahoma State. Alan Bowman's gotten going at quarterback for OSU. Ollie Gordon has not. They have struggled to run the ball. We'll see. Cam Rising looks like he's going to be back, the Utah quarterback. Ted, who are you taking?
I'm taking Oklahoma State. Guess what, Chad? I don't feel good about it.
First of the year.
That's the turnaround. The turnaround has happened. Oklahoma State, they do have to get the running game going. Bowman's been good, but Mike Gundy just finds ways to win these games.
Yeah, at home, too. A lot of them. Gabe, who you got?
And it's going to be so miserably hot on that turf with the 3 p.m.
It's
kick.
not hot in Utah.
No. I'm taking Utah.
Okay.
I trust Cam Rising to go and get it done. And I trust Utah's defense a little more than Oklahoma State.
I'm taking Oklahoma State. Illinois, Nebraska, top 25 matchup. Not surprised that Nebraska is 3-0. Am surprised Illinois is with a win over Kansas. I'm taking Nebraska in this one. Who you got, Gabe?
As am I.
You
I
have
love
to.
Raiola.
And that place is electric right now.
Arkansas and Auburn, hard to get excited about Auburn's win over New Mexico. They're better. I just think Arkansas, if they can not turn it over, they got the best player on the field. Who are you taking, Ted?
Yeah, I'm taking Arkansas. You know, they've been in their own way is the only problem for them, but I think they're the more talented football team.
Game's at Auburn, right?
Yeah, it's at Jordan Hare. It's a loud place.
Yeah, give me Auburn.
No, I'm taking Taylor Green and the Hogs.
That's my only logical reasoning.
Cal, FSU, ACC matchup. Cal's 3-0, Florida State 0-3. Who had that on their bingo card?
ACC matchup. That's funny.
Isn't it crazy? Who are you taking?
Florida State. Excuse me, Cal.
Gabe was shocked. Okay, who you got, Gabe? We got to go to break.
I am taking the Florida State Seminoles.
Me
to
too.
Get their
I got Florida
first
State.
win of the
We're
season.
looking at Sooners in the NFL and wrapping up Sooner Game Day next.
Sooner Game Day is brought to you by Riverwind Casino. Good times, great rewards. Coca-Cola. Is Coke Zero the best Coke ever? Take a test. OG&E. We energize life. The Sooner Sports Podcast is your all-access audio pass to Sooner Sports. Listen as Toby Rowland and Chris Plank talk all things Sooners. New episodes drop every day. Log on to Soonersports.com/podcast or search Sooner Sports Podcast in your favorite podcast provider. Presented by Allstate and Riverwind Casino. Thank you to our cornerstone television partners, OU Health, OG&E, Fowler Auto Group, and Coca-Cola.
Quick look at Sooners in the NFL. Big boy touchdown scored by Wanye Morris.
Thick 6, baby.
The thick 6. Kyler, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray went off.
He looked incredible.
Yes, he did.
And how about Legatron? Austin Seibert picked up off waivers, goes 7 for 7 on field goals. Try Teddy.
He's back in, baby.
We ready to pat a kicker on the back?
No.
Just doing his job, right?
You're only as good as your last 7 kicks there, I guess, for Seibert.
He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Air Comfort Solutions brings you hot takes. Air Comfort Solutions, your total home solution for plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. Make the winning call today. What's going to be the winning call Saturday night, Gabe?
I am just trying to speak this into existence. OU's going to score on defense.
I'm similar. I have them scoring on either defense or special teams, whether it's a block, a fake, a return. They've got to have something like that to win this football game.
You will take them all. 6:30 kickoff, prime time. Oklahoma debuts in the SEC just a few yards away from here inside Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. For Teddy Lehman and Gabe Eichert, I'm Chad McKee. We'll see you next week on Sooner Game Day.